The dance hall doors swung open with a violent crash, and Caroline Crawford stumbled backward as three women pushed past her, their laughter cutting through the warm Nevada evening like broken glass. "Did you see her trying to squeeze into that dress?" One of them shrieked, loud enough for half of Belmont to hear, like trying to stuff a feather mattress into a pillowcase. Caroline's cheeks burned as hot as the desert sun at midday. She pressed herself against the wooden wall of the dance hall, wishing she could disappear into the grain of the timber. It was July of 1878, and the town of Belmont, Nevada, was celebrating the completion of the new silver mill with a dance that had drawn folks from miles around. Caroline had spent 3 weeks sewing her dress, a deep blue calico that her younger sister Emma had assured her looked beautiful. Now she wondered if Emma had simply been kind. The fiddle music spilled out into the street, cheerful and oblivious to Caroline's humiliation. She had been standing near the refreshment table when she overheard Margaret Spencer and her friends discussing her figure in voices that were not quite whispers. Then, when Caroline had moved to leave, Margaret had made a great show of stepping aside, saying something about needing to make room. The other women had erupted in giggles. Caroline took a shaky breath and started walking away from the dance hall, her eyes stinging. At 22 years old, she had weathered plenty of cruel comments about her soft curves and rounded figure, but it never seemed to hurt any less. Her father ran the general store, and Caroline helped him 6 days a week, lifting crates and managing inventory with strength that surprised most men. She was capable and strong, but in a place like Belmont where thin, delicate women were prized like precious metals, Caroline felt like ore that nobody wanted to mine. "Leaving so soon?" A male voice called out from behind her. Caroline wiped quickly at her eyes and turned. A tall man was leaning against a hitching post, his hat tipped back enough that she could see dark hair, and a face she did not recognize. He wore dusty trail clothes and had the lean, weathered look of someone who spent more time under open sky than under roofs. "The dance is not really for me," Caroline said, trying to keep her voice steady. The man straightened and walked closer, his boots making soft sounds in the dirt. As he came into the light spilling from the dance hall windows, Caroline could see that he was probably around 25, with dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. There was a gentleness in his expression that surprised her. "That is a shame," he said. "I just rode in this evening and was told this was the finest dance Belmont had seen in years. Would be a real disappointment if I could not find anyone to dance with." "There are plenty of women inside," Caroline said, gesturing toward the door. "Maybe so," the man agreed. "But I am talking to you." Caroline felt her throat tighten. "You do not want to dance with me. Trust me on that." The man studied her for a long moment, then seemed to come to some decision. "My name is August Yates. I just signed on to work security for the silver mill. And I have spent the last 3 weeks riding through desert and dust, dreaming about hearing music and dancing with a pretty woman. Now here you are, and here is the music, and I am asking real polite if you would do me the honor." "You do not understand," Caroline said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "People were just laughing at me, inside, because of how I look." August's expression changed, something hardening in his eyes. "People laugh at all sorts of things that do not deserve laughing at. Does not make them right." He held out his hand. "One dance. If you hate every second of it, I will let you go and never bother you again. But if those folks inside said something to hurt you, the best thing you can do is walk back in there with your head high." Caroline looked at his outstretched hand. Every sensible part of her brain told her to refuse, to go home and forget this entire evening. But there was something in August's face, a sincerity that she had not seen in a long time, that made her pause. I am not a very good dancer, she said quietly. Neither am I, August said with a small smile. We will figure it out together. Caroline took his hand. His grip was warm and calloused, the hand of someone who worked hard for his living. He led her back toward the dance hall, and with each step, Caroline's heart hammered harder against her ribs. She wanted to pull away, to run, but August's steady presence beside her kept her moving forward. When they entered the hall, Caroline felt the weight of dozens of eyes turning toward them. Margaret Spencer stood near the refreshment table with her mouth slightly open. The fiddle player was in the middle of a lively reel, and several couples spun across the floor. August led Caroline directly into the center of the room. I should tell you I am not joking about not being a good dancer, August said, positioning himself in front of her. I might step on your feet. That would make us even, Caroline managed to say, though her voice shook. August placed one hand at her waist, and Caroline felt her breath catch. But there was nothing presumptuous or careless about his touch. He held her like she was something precious, his hand steady and respectful. He took her other hand in his, and then they were moving. Caroline stumbled at first, too aware of everyone watching, too conscious of her body and how much space she took up. But August did not seem to notice or care. He guided her through the steps with a patience that made her gradually relax. When she stepped on his foot, he just grinned and said, "Told you I was bad at this." "That was me," Caroline said. "Was it? I could not tell." The music shifted to something slower, and August adjusted their dance accordingly. Caroline found herself actually following the rhythm, her feet moving almost without thought. August was taller than her, but not so tall that she felt childish beside him. When she finally worked up the courage to look at his face, she found him watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. "You doing all right?" he asked quietly. "Better than I expected," Caroline admitted. "Good." August's hand at her waist pressed just slightly, drawing her a fraction closer. "Because you were absolutely right earlier." Caroline's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About there being plenty of women inside." August's eyes never left her face, "and I do not care about a single one of them." The song ended, but August did not immediately let go. For a moment they just stood there in the middle of the dance floor, and Caroline felt like the whole world had narrowed down to just the two of them. Then the fiddle started up again, and August said, "Another." Caroline nodded, not trusting her voice. They danced 3 more songs together. By the third, Caroline had almost forgotten about Margaret Spencer and the other women who had mocked her. She was too focused on the feeling of August's hand in hers, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room, the low rumble of his voice when he spoke to her between songs. When they finally stepped off the dance floor, Caroline's face was flushed and her legs felt shaky. August guided her to a quieter corner of the hall, away from the crowd. "Can I get you something to drink?" he asked. "That would be nice," Caroline said. August disappeared toward the refreshment table, and Caroline leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. She watched him navigate through the crowd, noting the way he moved with easy confidence. When Margaret Spencer tried to intercept him, he nodded politely but did not stop walking. He returned with 2 cups of punch and handed one to Caroline. "It is not very cold, but it is wet." Caroline took a sip. The punch was overly sweet and warm, but she did not care. "Thank you, for the dance, I mean, for all of them." "The pleasure was entirely mine," August said. He studied her over the rim of his cup. "Can I ask you something, I suppose? Why did you let those women get to you? The ones who said those things?" Caroline looked down at her punch. "Because they were saying what everyone thinks. I am not like the other women here. I am too big, too much. Men do not usually notice me except to make jokes." "Then men around here are idiots," August said flatly. "Pardon my language, but it is the truth." Caroline felt a smile tug at her lips despite herself. You do not have to say things like that. I am not saying it to be nice, August said. I am saying it because it is true. You think I asked you to dance out of pity? I asked because when I saw you walking away from here, you looked like someone who deserved better than whatever had just happened. And when you turned around, I thought you were about the prettiest thing I had seen in months. He paused. Still do. Caroline's cheeks heated. You are either very kind or very strange. Maybe both, August allowed, but I mean what I say. He drained the rest of his punch and set the cup aside. Now, I know I am a stranger and you have no reason to trust me, but I would really like to see you again. Would you let me call on you sometime? Call on me, Caroline repeated, sure she had misheard. Yes, like courting. That is still how it works, is it not? August looked suddenly uncertain. I have been on the trail for a while, maybe things have changed. No, that is still how it works, Caroline said faintly. I just did not expect anyone to want to court me. Well, I do, August said simply, if you are amenable to it. Caroline thought about all the reasons she should say no. She did not know this man. He had just arrived in town. He might change his mind once he had been around longer and met other women. But when she looked at his face, open and honest and waiting, she found herself saying, I help my father at the general store most days. Crawford's Mercantile on Main Street. I will remember that, August said, and his smile was like sunrise. They stayed at the dance for another hour, talking more than dancing. August told her about his work, how he had spent the last few years moving from mining town to mining town, taking jobs where he could find them. He had been born in Missouri, but had come west after his parents died, looking for something he could not quite name. Caroline told him about growing up in Belmont, about helping her father at the store after her mother died 5 years ago, about her younger sister Emma, who was 17 and full of dreams about moving to San Francisco. When the dance finally wound down near midnight, August walked Caroline home. The streets of Belmont were quiet, most of the town either still at the dance or already asleep. The air had cooled slightly, though it still held the warmth of the day. Above them, stars scattered across the sky in brilliant profusion. That is my house, Caroline said, pointing to a modest wooden structure set back from the street. A light glowed in one window where Emma had clearly waited up. Nice place, August said. They stood there for a moment, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Finally, August said, I meant what I said earlier, I would like to call on you. I would like that too, Caroline said. Tomorrow I could come by the store. Tomorrow is Sunday, we are closed, but you could come by here for dinner if you wanted, around noon. August's face lit up. I would be honored. He tipped his hat to her, and Caroline watched him walk away into the darkness, his figure gradually disappearing into shadow. She stood there long after he was gone, one hand pressed to her chest where her heart was still racing. Caroline. The front door flew open and Emma rushed out, her blonde hair loose around her shoulders. I saw you from the window. Who was that man? What happened? Martha Johnson came home an hour ago and said you danced with a stranger and that Margaret Spencer looked ready to spit nails. Caroline could not help but laugh. His name is August Yates. He is new in town and he asked if he could court me. Emma's squeal was loud enough to wake the neighbors. Court you, Caroline, this is wonderful. What did you say? I invited him to dinner tomorrow. Emma grabbed Caroline's hands and spun her around. We have to cook something amazing. Oh, this is so exciting. Tell me everything that happened. They went inside, and Caroline told her sister about the evening while they sat at the kitchen table. She left out the parts about Margaret Spencer's cruelty, but Emma was sharp enough to read between the lines. Good, Emma said fiercely when Caroline finished. Margaret Spencer is a nasty piece of work. I am glad this August fellow saw right past whatever she and her friends said. She squeezed Caroline's hand. You deserve someone who sees how wonderful you are. Do not get too excited, Caroline warned. This might not lead anywhere. He barely knows me. But he wants to know you, Emma pointed out. That is what matters. Caroline went to bed that night with her mind spinning. She replayed every moment of the evening, every word August had said, every look he had given her. Part of her was terrified that she had imagined the connection between them, that he would not show up tomorrow, that this was all some kind of mistake. But another part of her, a part she had almost forgotten existed, was hopeful. The next morning, Caroline and Emma spent hours preparing dinner. They roasted a chicken with potatoes and carrots, made fresh bread, and baked an apple pie using the last of their preserved apples from the previous fall. Caroline changed her dress 3 times before Emma finally told her she looked beautiful and to stop fussing. August arrived precisely at noon, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers that he must have ridden out to find. "For you," he said, handing them to Caroline. "I know they are not much, but I thought you might like them." "They are perfect," Caroline said, meaning it. Dinner was a lively affair. August charmed Emma within the first 5 minutes by asking about her dreams of San Francisco and actually listening to her answers. He complimented the food until Caroline told him to stop, or she would think he was just being polite. He helped clear the table afterward, insisting that it was the least he could do. When Emma excused herself after pie, claiming she needed to visit a friend, Caroline knew it was a polite fiction to give them time alone. August seemed to realize the same thing because he smiled slightly as Emma rushed out the door. "Your sister is nice," he said. "She is excited," Caroline admitted. "I do not usually have gentlemen callers." "Their loss," August said. He looked at her across the table. "Can I be honest with you about something?" Caroline felt her stomach tighten. "Of course. I have moved around a lot these past years, never stayed anywhere more than a few months. Always figured I would just keep drifting, that there was not anything worth staying in one place for." He paused. "But last night, dancing with you, I felt something I have not felt in a long time, like maybe I found a reason to put down roots." Caroline's breath caught. "August, you barely know me." "I know enough," he said. "I know you are kind. I know you work hard helping your father. I know you looked after your sister when your mother passed. I know you let cruel words hurt you more than they should because you have a tender heart. And I know that when you smile, it feels like sunshine." He reached across the table and carefully took her hand. "I am not saying I expect anything from you right away, but I am saying I would like the chance to know you better, to see if this feeling I have is real." Caroline looked down at their joined hands. His was so much larger than hers, roughened by work and weather, but his touch was gentle. "I felt it too," she whispered. "Last night, I thought maybe I was imagining it." "You were not," August said. They sat there for a long moment, hands clasped across the table, something unspoken but powerful passing between them. Finally, August said, "What do you do on Sunday afternoons in Belmont?" "Not much," Caroline admitted. "Sometimes Emma and I take walks. Sometimes I read. Would you like to take a walk with me? I could use some help getting oriented to the town." They spent the afternoon walking through Belmont, Caroline pointing out landmarks and businesses, while August asked questions and made her laugh with stories from his travels. He told her about a town in Colorado where the mayor's prized pig had gotten loose during a church service and caused absolute chaos. He described watching the sunrise over the Rocky Mountains. He talked about his brief stint as a ranch hand where he had been convinced he was going to be trampled by cattle at least twice a day. By the time August walked her home again, the sun was beginning to sink toward the western hills. At her door, he hesitated, then said, "Could I see you again tomorrow? Maybe come by the store when you get off work." "I would like that," Caroline said. August did come by the store the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Within a week, all of Belmont knew that Caroline Crawford was being courted by the new security man from the mill. Caroline felt the weight of people's stares wherever she went, heard the whispers that wondered what a man like August saw in a woman like her. But August seemed utterly unbothered by any of it. He would meet her after work and walk her home, carrying any parcels she needed to deliver along the way. He started taking meals with her and Emma regularly. He fixed the loose step on their porch without being asked and helped Caroline's father inventory a large shipment at the store. "I like this fellow," Samuel Crawford told his daughter one evening. "He has a good head on his shoulders and he treats you right." Caroline liked him too, more than she had ever expected to like anyone. August made her feel seen in a way she never had before. He listened when she talked about her dreams of maybe expanding the store one day, or her worries about Emma moving away. He noticed when she was tired and would insist she rest. He brought her small gifts, nothing expensive but always thoughtful. A smooth stone he found that was the exact color of her eyes, a book from a traveling salesman that he thought she would enjoy, a new ribbon for her hair. 3 weeks after they met, August took Caroline on a picnic up into the hills above Belmont. They found a spot in the shade of some scraggly juniper trees, overlooking the town and the valley beyond. While they ate sandwiches and drank lukewarm lemonade, August told her about his first week working at the mill. "It is not bad work," he said. "Mostly just making sure nobody tries to steal silver and breaking up disputes when the miners get into it. But I have been thinking about what comes next." "Next?" Caroline asked. "I have saved up a fair amount of money over the years," August said. "Never had much to spend it on moving around like I did. But I have been thinking I might want to buy some land, maybe start a small ranch, nothing big, just enough to make a living." He looked at her. "Would need to find the right property, though, somewhere with water access and decent grazing." "There is land for sale east of town," Caroline said. "The Morrison place. Old man Morrison died last year and his children all moved away. They have been trying to sell it but have not had any takers." "I will look into it," August said. Then, more quietly, "Would you want to see it with me? Get your opinion on whether it is worth considering." Caroline understood what he was really asking. If he was buying land, he was planning to stay in Belmont. And if he wanted her opinion on that land, he was planning a future that might include her. "Yes," she said, "I would like that." They rode out to the Morrison property the following Sunday. It was about 3 miles from town, a modest spread with a small house, a barn that needed repairs, and several acres of land that ran along a creek. August walked the property with Caroline beside him, talking through what would need to be done to make it viable. The house needed work but was structurally sound. The barn could be salvaged. The land itself was good, with water and enough grass to support cattle or horses. "What do you think?" August asked as they stood on the porch of the little house. Caroline looked out across the property. It was not grand or impressive, but it had potential. She could see it as it might be. The fence repaired, the barn rebuilt, the house freshened up with paint and care. She could see chickens in a coop and horses in a corral. She could see a life here. "I think it could be a good place," she said carefully, "for someone willing to put in the work." August turned to look at her. "Caroline, I need to ask you something, and I know it might be too soon, but I do not want to buy this land unless I know." Caroline's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Know what? If you could see yourself here, with me." August took both her hands in his. "I am not asking you to marry me right this minute, but I am asking if that is something you could see happening." Because I am falling in love with you, and if there is no chance you might feel the same way, I need to know before I tie myself to Belmont permanently." Caroline felt tears prick her eyes. "You are falling in love with me." "Have been since that first dance," August said. "Maybe even before that, when you were trying so hard to be strong even though you were hurting. You are the bravest, kindest, most beautiful woman I have ever met, and yes, I am absolutely falling in love with you." "I am falling in love with you too," Caroline whispered. "I tried not to because I was scared you would change your mind about me, but I could not help it." August pulled her into his arms, and Caroline went willingly, resting her head against his chest. She could hear his heart beating fast beneath her ear. His arms around her were strong and steady, and she felt safer than she had in years. "So you could see it?" August asked quietly. "A future here?" "Yes," Caroline said. "I can see it." August bought the property the following week. The sale went through quickly, and suddenly he was a landowner with a ranch to build. He moved his few belongings out to the property and began the work of making it livable. Caroline helped whenever she could, coming out after her shifts at the store. Emma came too sometimes, the three of them working together to clean the house and make plans for improvements. It was hard work, but Caroline loved every minute of it. She loved watching August repair the barn, his shirt sleeves rolled up and his face focused with concentration. She loved sitting on the porch in the evenings, talking about their days. She loved the way he would kiss her goodnight before she and Emma rode back to town, his lips soft and sweet against hers. 2 months after August bought the property, he proposed officially. It was nothing elaborate, just the two of them sitting on the porch at sunset, August suddenly dropping to one knee and producing a simple gold band. "I know I should have gotten you a diamond or something fancy," he said, "but I spent most of my savings on the land, and this was all I could afford. If you say yes, I promise I will get you a better ring someday." "I do not want a better ring," Caroline said, tears streaming down her face. "I want this one, and I want you." "Yes, August, yes." The ring fit perfectly. August stood and kissed her, and Caroline thought her heart might burst from happiness. They were married in October of 1878, in a simple ceremony at the Belmont church. Emma stood up as Caroline's maid of honor, and August's foreman from the mill served as his best man. Samuel Crawford walked his daughter down the aisle with tears in his eyes. The church was surprisingly full, more people than Caroline had expected. Even Margaret Spencer was there, though she looked sour throughout the whole ceremony. Caroline wore a new dress that she and Emma had sewn together, ivory-colored with delicate embroidery at the collar. August wore his best suit and looked more nervous than Caroline had ever seen him. When the preacher asked if he took Caroline to be his lawfully wedded wife, August's voice rang out clear and sure. "I do." The reception was held at the ranch, with neighbors bringing food and drink. Someone had a fiddle, and there was dancing. August danced with Caroline just like he had that first night, holding her like she was precious, looking at her like she was the only woman in the world. When Margaret Spencer's husband asked Caroline for a dance out of politeness, August gracefully cut in after just a few moments, saying he could not bear to be parted from his bride for too long. As the sun set and the guests began to leave, August and Caroline stood together on their porch, waving goodbye. When the last wagon disappeared down the road, August turned to his wife and said, "Ready to start our life together, Mrs. Yates." "More than ready," Caroline said. Their first year of marriage was filled with hard work and joy in equal measure. August continued working security at the mill while also building up the ranch. He bought a small herd of cattle and several horses. Caroline kept helping her father at the store, saving every penny she could toward their future. In the evenings, They worked together on the ranch, mending fences and tending animals and slowly turning the property into a real home. It was not always easy. There were days when the work seemed endless, when Caroline was so tired she could barely move, when unexpected expenses threatened their savings. But August was beside her through all of it, steady and patient and unfailingly supportive. He never complained when dinner was late or when the house was messy, because they had both been working outside until dark. He told her he loved her every single day, usually multiple times. Caroline found herself blooming under his love and care. The nagging voice in her head that had always told her she was not good enough, not pretty enough, too much, began to fade. August thought she was beautiful, and he showed her that in 1,000 small ways every day. The way he looked at her across the breakfast table. The way he would stop whatever he was doing just to kiss her when she passed by. The way he held her at night like she was the most precious thing in the world. By the following spring, Caroline realized she was pregnant. She told August one evening after dinner, watching his face carefully for his reaction. For a moment he just stared at her, and then a grin spread across his face so wide it looked like it might split his cheeks. "A baby," he said. "We are having a baby." "Yes," Caroline said, and then she was laughing because August had picked her up and was spinning her around the kitchen. "I am going to be a father," he said, setting her down carefully. "We are going to be parents." Then his expression turned concerned. "Are you feeling all right? Do you need to sit down? Should you be working so hard?" "I am fine," Caroline assured him. Pregnant women do not break, August. But August fussed over her anyway, insisting she not lift heavy things and making sure she rested. Caroline found it endearing even when it was occasionally annoying. Emma was thrilled at the news and started sewing baby clothes immediately. Samuel Crawford looked at his son-in-law with new respect and started talking about grandchildren. Caroline's pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer. Her belly grew round and August loved to rest his hand on it, feeling the baby kick. They painted the small extra bedroom in the house, turning it into a nursery. August built a cradle with his own hands, sanding it until it was smooth as silk. Their son was born on a cold January morning in 1880, after a long and difficult labor. August held Caroline's hand through all of it, refusing to leave even when the midwife suggested he wait outside. When the baby finally arrived, squalling and red-faced and perfect, August cried openly. They named him Samuel Crawford Yates, after Caroline's father. Little Sam had his father's dark hair and his mother's eyes, and August insisted he was the most beautiful baby ever born. Caroline, exhausted and overwhelmed and more in love than she knew was possible, had to agree. The first months of parenthood were harder than Caroline had anticipated. Sam was colicky and did not sleep well, which meant neither did his parents. The ranch work could not stop just because they had a baby, so Caroline found herself operating on very little sleep, trying to manage the household and help with the animals while also caring for an infant. There were moments when she broke down crying from sheer exhaustion. But August was there through all of it. He would walk Sam around the house in the middle of the night when the baby would not settle. He hired a woman from town to help with the housework so Caroline could rest. He told her again and again that she was doing wonderfully, that she was an amazing mother, that he loved her more each day. Slowly, they found their rhythm. Sam began sleeping longer stretches. Caroline's body recovered from the birth. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. By the time Sam was 6 months old, August was able to quit his job at the mill and focus entirely on ranching. It was what he had always wanted, and Caroline could see how happy it made him to work their own land full-time. Emma moved to San Francisco when Sam was a year old. It was bittersweet saying goodbye to her sister, but Caroline knew Emma needed to chase her own dreams. They promised to write often, and Emma made Caroline promise to visit with the baby. Life settled into a comfortable pattern. The ranch thrived under August's careful management. Caroline eventually stopped working at her father's store to focus on Sam and the ranch. She discovered she had a talent for managing the ranch's finances and for breeding horses. August would joke that she was the brains of the operation while he was just the muscle. They added 2 more children over the next several years, a daughter named Catherine in 1882 and another son, James, in 1884. The little house that had seemed adequate for 2 people became cramped with 5, so August built an addition, adding 2 more bedrooms and expanding the kitchen. The ranch grew as well, with more land and more livestock. Caroline sometimes thought back to that night at the dance hall when Margaret Spencer and her friends had mocked her and she had wanted to disappear. It felt like a lifetime ago. She was not the same woman anymore, not really. Or maybe she was, but she had learned to see herself the way August saw her, as strong and capable and beautiful. Margaret Spencer had married a banker's son and moved to Carson City. Caroline occasionally heard news about her through mutual acquaintances, but it all seemed distant and unimportant. Her own life was too full of real things to worry about old slights. On their 10th wedding anniversary, August surprised Caroline with a trip to San Francisco to visit Emma. It was the first time Caroline had been away from the ranch for more than a day since they were married, and she felt oddly nervous leaving everything behind. But August had arranged for neighbors to watch the children and manage the ranch, and he insisted they deserved this time together. San Francisco amazed Caroline with its bustle and noise and sheer size. Emma had married a shopkeeper and seemed happy, though she admitted she sometimes missed the wide, open spaces of Nevada. They spent a week exploring the city, and it was wonderful, but Caroline found herself eager to return home. The city was exciting, but the ranch was where her heart was. On the train ride back to Nevada, August took her hand and said, "Thank you." "For what?" Caroline asked. "For taking a chance on a stranger at a dance 10 years ago," August said. "For building this life with me. For giving me 3 beautiful children and a home and a reason to stay in one place." He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it. "You are my whole world, Caroline. I hope you know that." "You are mine too," Caroline said softly. "I never imagined I could be this happy." "Neither did I," August admitted, "but here we are." When they returned to the ranch, the children rushed out to greet them, Sam now a sturdy boy of 8, Catherine a lively 6-year-old, and James barely able to toddle at 4. August scooped them all up into a hug while Caroline stood back and watched, her heart so full it ached. This was her life. This messy, chaotic, beautiful life. A husband who loved her completely. Children who filled every day with laughter and noise and sticky hugs. A ranch that was a testament to hard work and dedication. A community that had come to respect the Yates family for what they had built. That evening, after the children were in bed, August and Caroline sat on their porch watching the sunset. It was something they had done countless times over the years, but it never got old. The sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple, the colors reflecting off the distant mountains. "You ever think about that first night?" Caroline asked. "At the dance?" "All the time," August said. He had his arm around her and she was tucked against his side. "Best decision I ever made, asking you to dance." "You changed my life that night," Caroline said quietly. "I was so convinced that nobody would ever want me, that I was not worth loving. And then there you were, holding me like I was precious, looking at me like I mattered." "You did matter," August said. "You do matter. And I did not change your life, Caroline. I just helped you see what was already there, a woman who was strong and brave and deserving of every good thing. Caroline turned to look at him, this man who had given her everything. "I love you," she said. "I do not say it enough, but I love you so much." "I love you too," August said, and kissed her as the sun sank below the horizon. The years continued to pass, bringing changes and challenges, but also joy. Sam grew into a serious young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Catherine was spirited and clever, with dreams of becoming a teacher. James was the baby, sweet-natured and affectionate. August's hair began to silver at the temples, and Caroline found lines on her face that had not been there before, but neither of them minded. They had earned those marks through years of laughter and tears and life lived fully. Samuel Crawford passed away in 1890, and Caroline grieved the loss of her father deeply. But August was there to hold her through it, and their children surrounded her with love. They took over running the mercantile in addition to the ranch, Sam showing an unexpected talent for business. It was a lot to manage, but they did it together, the whole family pitching in. In 1895, Sam married a sweet girl named Mary from one of the neighboring ranches. The wedding was held at the Yates Ranch, and Caroline could not help but think about her own wedding 17 years earlier. Sam and Mary built a small house on the far end of the property, planning to take over more of the ranch work as August got older. Catherine left for Teachers College in 1898, fulfilling her dream. James was courting the doctor's daughter. The house felt emptier with the children grown and starting their own lives, but Caroline and August enjoyed having more time just for themselves. One evening in the spring of 1899, Caroline and August took their usual seats on the porch. The ranch was quieter now, with Sam and Mary handling most of the daily work. August had finally, reluctantly, agreed to step back and let the younger generation take over. He was 66 now, still strong but not as spry as he once was. Caroline was 53, her dark hair shot through with silver. "Hard to believe it has been 21 years since we got married," August said. "Feels like yesterday and forever ago all at the same time." "I know what you mean," Caroline said. She took his hand, their fingers interlacing automatically after so many years together. "Do you have any regrets?" "Not a single one," August said immediately. "You?" Caroline thought about her life, about the scared young woman at a dance who thought nobody would ever love her. She thought about the man who had seen past her fears and insecurities to the person underneath. She thought about the family they had built together, the home they had made, the life they had created from nothing but hard work and love. "No regrets," she said. "Not one." They sat together as the sun set, just as they had done thousands of times before. The sky turned gold and then pink and then purple. The familiar landscape of the ranch spread out before them. In the distance, they could hear Sam calling to the cattle and Mary laughing at something. Smoke rose from the chimney of their little house. "I would do it all again," August said quietly. "Every single moment exactly the same, just to end up here with you." Caroline leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. "Me too," she whispered. The stars began to come out, brilliant against the darkening sky. A cool breeze picked up, carrying the scent of sage and earth. August's arm tightened around Caroline and she closed her eyes, memorizing this moment. The feel of him beside her, the sounds of their land, the peace that came from a life well lived. She had been shamed once, made to feel small and unworthy. But August had asked her to dance and held her like she was royalty. He had loved her when she could not love herself, had seen her beauty when all she could see were flaws, had chosen her every day for more than 2 decades. And in doing so, he had given her the greatest gift, the ability to see herself through his eyes, to understand that she had always been worthy of love, "Thank you," Caroline said suddenly. "For what?" August asked, though his voice was warm like he knew. "For everything," Caroline said. "For that first dance, for seeing me, for loving me, for this life." August turned and kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then her lips. "The honor," he said softly, "was always mine." They stayed on the porch until the stars filled the sky and the night grew cool. Eventually, they went inside to the home they had built together, closing the door on another perfect day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, but they would face it together, just as they always had. In the bedroom, Caroline caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror that hung on the wall. She saw a woman with silver-streaked hair and a lined face, a body that had borne 3 children and worked hard for decades. But she also saw something else, a woman who was loved, completely and unconditionally. A woman who had built something lasting and real. A woman who was, despite everything she had once believed, enough. August came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Still the most beautiful woman I have ever seen," he said. And when Caroline looked at their reflection together, she believed him. Years continued to unfold with their particular mix of joy and sorrow. Sam and Mary gave them grandchildren, 3 in total, who filled the ranch with noise and laughter. Catherine returned to Belmont after finishing her teaching degree and opened a school in town. James married the doctor's daughter in a ceremony that seemed to invite half the county. August and Caroline grew older together, their bodies slowing but their love never diminishing. They took walks in the evenings instead of working the ranch. They spent afternoons on the porch watching their grandchildren play. They held hands through church services and sat close together at family dinners. In 1905, on a warm summer evening not unlike the night they met, Caroline and August celebrated their 27th wedding anniversary. Their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a party. There was music and dancing, and August, now 72 but still steady on his feet, led Caroline out to dance. As they moved together, slower now but no less connected, Caroline thought about that first dance in 1878. She had been so frightened then, so convinced that she did not deserve love or happiness. And August had taken her hand and proved her wrong in the most beautiful way possible. "What are you thinking about?" August asked, his voice softer than it used to be but still warm. "Just remembering," Caroline said, "that first dance, how terrified I was, how sure I was that you would regret asking me." August smiled. "Best thing I ever did, asking you to dance. Second best thing was convincing you to marry me." "I did not need much convincing," Caroline admitted. "Neither did I," August said. "The moment I saw you, I knew my drifting days were over. I just had to make sure you knew it too." They danced until the music stopped, surrounded by their family, their legacy, the life they had built from one brave moment at a dance hall in 1878. When the song ended, their grandchildren clapped, and Sam raised a glass to toast his parents. "To the best parents and grandparents anyone could ask for," Sam said, his voice thick with emotion. "To a love that has inspired all of us. To 27 years and many more to come." Everyone echoed the sentiment, glasses clinking together in the warm evening air. August and Caroline continued on together, partners in every sense of the word. They faced the new century with the same courage they had faced everything else. Together, hand in hand, knowing that whatever came, they had each other. When August died in 1912 at the age of 79, Caroline held his hand through the final moments. He went peacefully in his sleep, and his last words to her were the same ones he had said every day for 34 years. "I love you." Caroline grieved deeply, but she was surrounded by the family they had built together. Sam and his family lived on the ranch. Catherine had married and lived in town but visited often. James ran the mercantile with his wife and children. Caroline had 9 grandchildren who adored her, and she poured her love into them. She lived another 15 years after August passed, remaining sharp and active well into her 80s. She told stories about her husband to anyone who would listen, especially to her grandchildren. She wanted them to know about the cowboy who had asked a lonely woman to dance and changed her entire life. On summer evenings, she would sit on the porch and remember. She could almost feel August's presence beside her, his arm around her shoulders, his steady voice in her ear. She would look out over the ranch they had built together and feel satisfaction deep in her bones. They had done something good here, something that would last. Caroline Crawford Yates died peacefully in her sleep in 1927 at the age of 81. She was laid to rest beside August in the Belmont cemetery, their graves side by side under a large oak tree. Their headstones were simple but elegant, and beneath their names and dates, the family had inscribed, "Together forever." The ranch continued on, passed down through generations. The story of August and Caroline became family legend, told and retold at gatherings. The grandchildren told it to their children, who told it to their children. It became the kind of story that defined a family. A reminder that love could grow from the smallest moments, that kindness could change a life, that seeing someone's true worth was the greatest gift you could give. The dance hall where they met burned down in 1935, but old-timers in Belmont still remembered it. They remembered the night a stranger rode into town and asked a lonely woman to dance. They remembered how August Yates held Caroline Crawford like she was the most precious thing in the world. And they remembered the love story that followed, a testament to the power of seeing past surfaces to the beautiful soul underneath. In the end, that was August and Caroline's legacy. Not just the ranch or the family or the years they spent together, but the proof that real love was about truly seeing another person, flaws and all, and choosing to treasure them anyway. It was about one brave moment at a dance, one man willing to look past what society valued, one woman learning to believe she was worthy of love. It was about holding someone like they were royalty and meaning it with every fiber of your being. And from that one dance, that one moment of courage and kindness, came a love story that lasted a lifetime and beyond, inspiring generations with its simple, powerful truth. Everyone deserves to be loved exactly as they are, and when you find someone who sees your true worth, you hold on to them and build something beautiful together. The Yates Ranch still stands today, over a century later, run by the great-great-grandchildren of August and Caroline. And on summer evenings, when the light turns golden and the breeze carries the scent of sage, you can almost imagine them there. A cowboy and his lady, dancing on the porch, lost in a love that transcends time itself. Proof that sometimes the most profound journeys begin with a single invitation to dance.